Hey there, it's meteorologist Jamie Singleton. Thanks for joining me live here, 9:41 on a Sunday night, January the 26th, 2020. How much snow have you seen this winter? An inch? Inch and a half maybe? Not much, right? But yeah, we've got some possible snow in the forecast, or I should say I have some possible snow for you. I don't know what everyone else has up. I don't pay attention really to other forecasts as much as I try to compare storms that produce similar results. And let me first say that I'm not entirely 100% on board with us getting, plowable snow here next weekend. Date I'm really watching is next Saturday, which is the 1st of February. But there's enough of a chance, especially compared to the lack of snow that we've seen all winter, there's enough of a chance that I think you need to know about this and just kind of put it in the back of your head for right now. And as we fine tune it, probably Wednesday and a Thursday, we'll have a much better idea. But I wanted to go over why I think we've got a decent chance out there. And we've got a couple other systems also to talk about for you as well that are coming up as early as tomorrow. Here's one of them coming out of Tennessee. This is just an upper level ripple in the jet stream, scooting across Tennessee and Kentucky. I haven't done one of these in a while. A little bit rusty. Hasn't snowed in a while. That's one of the reasons. But you can see a lot of cloudiness out across Kentucky and Tennessee. But this one is not meeting up with this moisture to the south here across the Gulf of Mexico. So this is going to be scooting through tomorrow. It'll bring with it a fair amount of clouds by the afternoon. If you're able to warm up tomorrow, if anything falls, more than likely it's just going to be light rain. But you could see some wet snowflakes mixed in. And people ask me sometimes, what's a wet snowflake? What's a dry snowflake? Well, if you're close to freezing, it's a warmer snow, it's a wet snow. If it's a much fluffier, colder snow, it's a drier snow. And all through this presentation tonight, we're talking about not Arctic air moving in. We're talking about more polar Pacific air. So any snow that we get will probably be a very wet nature. Very pretty to watch. But anyway, tomorrow I think maybe parts of the Mountain Empire around Wytheville, I-77, this area in the northwest North Carolina around Boone may catch a little bit of light snow. It shouldn't be too much out there, but some of the near-term models are picking up on that. So this will be for your Monday afternoon into your Monday evening and going into early Monday night. Then that clears out. There's a second system, and I'm going to expand the view here for you to see. I'll be moving stuff around on you here throughout the course of the presentation. But there's a couple more systems that'll be coming down the pike. One of them will be Thursday. Don't confuse that with the Saturday system. The Thursday system is kind of a lead shortwave out ahead of the main deal, I think, for Saturday. But you have to watch these individual shortwaves because sometimes models can hone in on one, make that the big storm, and then the one that you don't expect takes over. Just know this, the pattern, and we're going to show it to you right now, is pretty active. You've got one disturbance there in California. There's another one in Texas. And again, one of these scoots through tomorrow. You get another one Thursday. You get another one coming up for the weekend. And then the following weekend, February the 8th. Yeah, I'm watching that too. You can see a bit of a tropical connection. You need a Gulf low pressure system here to get snow. You probably know that if you've tracked it for any amount of time. You need to have lows coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, riding up the coast. If you don't have that, what you're going to get is slush, sleet, freezing rain, all that messy stuff. Pretty much what we've seen this winter, anything but Gulf lows. So finally, we have a chance of seeing lows come out of the Gulf and scoot up the coast. What you're going to see happen over the next few days, a lot of the models are going to go back and forth because they're going to get confused on the timing of the northern part of the jet stream, which is the part supplying the colder air. Within that are individual disturbances that are very hard to time. Every time we get a potential snowstorm, you'll see models go back and forth. Typically what happens is at this phase, which is the phase we're at right now, snow starts showing up on the models a week out, even 10 days out. And that was the case about 10 days ago. And then As you get a little bit closer, the models suddenly lose the snowstorm. And they're not really losing it as much as they are timing the short waves that would either kick it out to sea or pull it in as rain. They're timing it differently. And what happens is the model continues to correct as we get weather balloon data to correct these systems. Bottom line is, this is what causes, if you're watching on television or whatever, this is what causes when you look at those models, you'll hear the forecaster say, oh, now this is going to go out to sea, or we're very uncertain about the path. And you keep following the models. If you follow them online, you'll see them do that. Even the Euro will do this. And all of a sudden, right before 2 days out, you'll see the snowstorm reappear. So the models will get it about a week out. They'll lose it in about 3 or 4 days, and then they get it back. And the reason is, it's not that one disturbance that got it, it's the next one. So you have to keep in mind there's all kinds of factors. It's a very literally fluid situation, and that causes a lot of uncertainty in the modeling. But if you know the pattern, you can correctly, kind of guess from an overall standpoint what's going to happen. Got all kinds of stuff up here, but I wanted to show you the overall pattern, and I've got my Instagram folks on here too, so I'm going to move some stuff around. But let me first start off by saying this is not a very good pattern for a classic northeast or eastern United States snow. You would typically want to see a lot of red up here in Greenland, and you would want to see a lot of red near Alaska. But Alaska, you want to see it warm in Alaska because it sends the cold Arctic air down, and that's what gets involved in some of these big blizzards that snow lovers like to see. What we've got going on is kind of an El Nino-ish pattern, a very kind of weak El Nino-ish pattern, where you've got some blocking and you've got that red, but it's over the Hudson Bay in Canada. So what it's doing is it's forcing all of this energy down to the south. It's forcing stuff to come near the Gulf of Mexico and out of the Gulf of Mexico. We just had an inch and a half of rain across much of Franklin County in my house recently from one of these disturbances. That was a warm disturbance. It went farther in. But that's why I have a hard time thinking this is going to go out to sea, because everything's been inland, well west of the area. That's why we haven't seen any big snow. We've seen a lot of rain. I don't see this going out to sea, and that's regarding the Saturday system. But you've got all these disturbances in the blue here that's causing the heights and the basically the jet stream to be dipping a lot down across the Gulf of Mexico. That's a good sign. A lot of times it gets really cold and this gets suppressed to the south and we don't see any snow. Some of our more impressive snowstorms of a wet nature have occurred in a pattern that's kind of indicative of a wet El Nino. So I wouldn't call this pure El Nino, but it's got some characteristics of it in that you've got a very active southern branch here. You've got the cold air still bottled up in the Alaska and well north in the Greenland here. So we don't have a Greenland block. In other words, you'd want to see a lot of red here. You'd want to see a lot of red in Alaska, and that causes everything to kind of buckle. But we've got just enough cold air. And cold air, it doesn't have to be super cold. If you want snow in Virginia, sometimes it can be just cold enough. And that's going to be the case this week as we go into the weekend. Timing anything out with exactly where the cold air moves as far as where its center around the high pressure is can make a difference between snow and rain. I think that's our biggest concern, but I don't think we're going to miss the moisture out of this. And that's because we're just in a pattern that's going to favor these lows moving along the coast. Let me show you the Weather Prediction Center here, and I'll go through everything to kind of sort things out for you. So this is tonight, and you've got that disturbance moving in by early tomorrow morning. It may be snowing in Bluefield. This is not the big snowstorm. This is the weak one coming in overnight tonight. No accumulation with this, but just some flurries and some light rain showers tomorrow. That clears out for tomorrow night. As we go into the day on Wednesday and Thursday, we start to see another system scoot across the Gulf. We do have to watch this one, but the upper air energy looks like it's going to, the wave with it's going to flatten. So if we see any moisture, it will probably just fizzle out Wednesday night into early Thursday. Meanwhile, you've got not super cold, but cold high pressure up across the upper Great Lakes moving into the New England states. That's setting you up Friday, and the Saturday you see it still in position. It relents a little bit and you start to see a weakness develop here. This is Saturday. Well, let's go back to Friday. You've got some disturbances in the Gulf of Mexico. You got a front that's stalled in the Gulf of Mexico, and you've got that active subtropical jet. So you're going to see that's temperature contrast, and now we've got the pattern again. That's that southern jet stream going right over that. So you're going to see lows, numerous lows, crank up, and you'll probably consolidate that into one or two lows. But you can see the Weather Prediction Center here has it as two lows. But you can see here, that's a good pattern for us for snow. This is Saturday morning. This is Sunday morning. It's already pulled off the coast of Maine here. But I think, this is certainly plausible. We could just see it as rain, especially if it stays near the coast. But notice, I don't see this out to sea. The Weather Prediction Center doesn't see this out to sea. And typically lows, when they get in the Gulf and move up the coast, they find a way to get snow here, at least across part of the area, when there is when you're into winter months. So let me show you the Weather Prediction Center snow outlook, or at least the possibility of getting snow. This is for Friday and the Saturday. And you can see here that a good part of our area, just about all of our area, is in the like 10 to 30% chance. And you got to keep in mind this is 6 to 7 days out. So most of what you see on this whole map of the United States are going to probably put it as a fairly low chance for right now. And then Saturday into Sunday, it's moving a little bit farther north. But note on both those days, and both of them are kind of centered on Saturday, both those days you do see it over the area. I don't know why it's trying to draw it. It kind of disappeared there for a second, but that's a pretty good typical pattern that we start to see snow in. This is the German icon model, and I don't like to hug models a lot or cherry pick models that say one thing or the other, but I do have to at some point give you an idea of what I'm looking at here. So this was the 18Z Sunday run, this afternoon's run. And I also don't like using 18Z model runs, but for the sake of my argument here, I'm going to. So this is tomorrow's system. Again, that's a very light one, but you've got a little bit of light snow around Roanoke and Blacksburg, probably just some flurries, if anything, a few sprinkles down across North Carolina. And that's the Wednesday night and the Thursday system, by the way. You've got some spitting snow, if this model's correct, even into Thursday night. And then notice by the time, and it's not going to go out far enough, but by the time we go into Friday afternoon, you don't see this low either going out into the ocean. It's coming up the coast. So what I wanted to show you is the placement of the moisture is good, and you've got that low pressure center near the coast. You've also got the 540 line, which is a good overall indicator of rain snow. That's close enough to the area. We're in between 540, 546 thickness decameters, and what that tells you is that's pretty good for if you can throw moisture into that, you've got a good chance of that being snow there as well. So everything's looking good there. This is another look at the NAM, and this is the new hot off the presses NAM, which keeps a lot of tomorrow's snow down across Saltville and Bristol, those areas. Again, it won't amount to all that much, if anything. Then it just comes maybe some rain showers, Franklin County and south along the Carolina border there by the afternoon. But we've got a fair amount of upslope snow here across the Greenbrier Valley of West Virginia in the NRV, and then that moves on out. The lake effect snow showers continue, and then at the very end of this, you start to see hints at our Thursday system. What's interesting is that earlier this afternoon, the Thursday system didn't look all that impressive, but I'm going to show you right now let's go to the United States. This is the lower resolution NAM, but it goes out farther in time because of the lower res. But we'll go to our precipitation type here. Now, let me move this over. There's tomorrow, and then after tomorrow we go into Wednesday. Low doesn't quite get into the Gulf, but it's making a run at it, and right there it does get into the Gulf. Some of the energy is starting to wrap into it. So that's why I throw a little bit of caution in here, saying that you got to watch individual short waves. This one was supposed to dampen and become nothing, but I've got to be honest with you, this is Thursday morning. I'm not going with this right now, but I want you to keep an eye on Thursday morning too as I'm looking at this live. You've got cold, high pressure here in the perfect place for snow, but you don't have a ton of moisture because you've got a relatively weak low. That said, though, you do have a low there. And the model is showing you as a result Asheville, North Carolina, from Asheville even down right up against the upstate and far southwest Virginia, some snow falling, and that's Thursday. So keep an eye on Thursday, but right now I think the best chance is still going to be on Saturday, and that's when the other low pressure system starts to dig down across the Gulf. This is the UK Met. This is almost like the Euro. It's the UK's version of that, their own model here, and it does a fairly good job. I think it's the second most accurate model a lot of times, but if you look here compared to the Euro, but you can see these waves here in the blue. You've got the blue near the Gulf. That's good. That's indicating potential for storminess, basically. That's where all of your heights are lowering and you're getting a lot of storms. You've got the orange to the north. That's where high pressure is developing and staying, and that keeps the cold air kind of locked in, or the coldish air. It's not super cold, but this takes you out again. This is the Wednesday, Thursday system there, and then as you go into the end of the weekend, there come a couple of short waves of energy here Friday night into Saturday. So again, that's the overall pattern, and this model supports it. If I put on the precipitation, the idea that storms just move out to sea is really a myth, especially in the winter. This model supports some on and off again snow. I'll put that on my 7-day where I think the better chances are going to be, but if you go through time here, this is going into Friday night and into Saturday. It's got a little bit to the east here, but it does have moisture getting into our area, and that would be in the form of snow because your rain snow line's right there in the zero. Overall oscillations that we look at, and I won't get into a lot of this, but a lot of folks on the internet and in social media land love looking at these to tell you whether or not they think it's going to snow or not. Simply put, there is some truth to this, but it doesn't have to always be in your favor. Right? If you get something developing like we've got now, you can sneak a snowstorm in, basically. And they don't look all that bad compared to where we were. The Arctic air is going to be up to our north, and that's why you want this to be in the negatives down below this bar. It's not. It's probably not going to be in the negatives, so that makes sense. We're not going to see a lot of influence from the Arctic. The North Atlantic oscillation does show a little bit of a hint towards neutral, and we had a bit of a dip. We just had this cold air move in a couple of days ago, and you can see, or that was last week, when we almost got down to zero, okay? Bottom line is you want to see this down into the negative digits, generally speaking, for big snowstorms, but we've had big snowstorms when this is in the positive as well. And this year what I've noticed is every time it gets close to zero, it'll stay positive, but if it gets close to zero, it's given us a big shot of cold air. So I think that the trend going toward neutral here actually looks good. And then you've got the Pacific Ocean. You want to see things kind of pile up there and get blocky. And that happens when you get these values into the negative. They've been tremendously positive. It's the West Pacific Oscillation, the East Pacific Oscillation, which also you want to be negative. You can see how far positive that is. All right. So, you know, that doesn't look too good. That's off the Euro. Again, I don't like spending a ton of time on these public videos like that, but if you look at the ensembles, the model the Euro tweaked about 50 different ways. You see how we're tremendously warm and not seeing a lot of influence here, and then all of a sudden you get down into a reversal here, and this could not verify because we've seen a couple of teases at this before, but there's no denying that steep drop off there. And this is going into the 2nd, 3rd of February. So that would be about the time that we start to see our snow chances increase, and then it continues to hover right near neutral. So we're going to take neutral, okay? And the MJO also is something we look at. This basically we go counterclockwise here. This is our history in red, and then the green and the yellow And the gray, that's the forecast off of each model. So we've got a bias corrected GFS ensemble here. Oh, sorry, Instagrammers. And you can see how we've been, these are the warm 7, 6, 5, and 4 have been the very warm phases that we've been in for a lot of January. But notice toward the end of January here, I know it's hard to read, you go down toward the center of the circle, that's the null phase where there is hardly any MJO activity. And that's when it started to get cold last week. And then we kind of hang around the null phase. We go a little bit back into 6, and then we swing back around. This is based on where storms are clustered in the Pacific Ocean between the Indian Ocean and the Central Pacific. And it gives us a general idea, again, the key word being general, of where things line up in terms of on the planet where we see hot and cold air. But you want things on this side, the 8, 1, 2, 3, those are the good sides. So you can kind of draw a line through here. Once you start getting out of the null back into the 2 and 3, things look good. So even farther down the road, there's sometimes a delay in this too. But I think that we're, in the null phase, you've got a shot at seeing some snowfall, and that goes back into 2 and 3 too. So that would be actually really good for January into March. And I was just looking at some data. Did you know that we always remember, and I'm not saying this will be just like 1993, but we always remember the big snowstorm in 1993. Did you know that before that snowstorm, we had only an inch of snow in Roanoke up until that point? We didn't have any snow in December. We only had like a trace. January, February went by with only like an inch of snow. And then March came, and there we go, 1 to 2 feet of snow. 1980 was I think 80 to 81. This time in 1981, we were sitting at 1.4 inches of snow. We didn't see any snow in February. And in March, we had 10.4 inches of snow in Roanoke. So listen, you've got to watch it snow all the way into early April. And a lot of times it may not stick, but it snows the first week of April around here. So that's just a bottom line point I want to kind of share. Winter ain't over. Don't believe anything you hear about that being over, because it can change. Now, it could also continue doing what it's been doing. I wouldn't write that off the table yet either. It's been a frustrating winter. But if you look at some of the ensembles here off the Euro, the main run of that took everything off to the east. But this is fun because what I'm showing you are 50 different outputs where we tweak the model just a itty bitty bit, one way or the other, to account for natural errors. And what it does, it's great at showing you that uncertainty. What if it goes this way? What's it going to do? What if it's a little bit colder here? What's it going to do? And if you tweak it, you can see big disparities here. So that means that run of the Euro, if you're a weather weenie and you saw it moving out to sea, you said, oh no, here we go. It's not going to do anything. When you see the ensembles jump around like this, that gives you a reason to doubt the main run of the Euro. In other words, don't look for it necessarily to go out to sea on Saturday. Through time here, you can see, I'm just going to go through each one. There's one that shows nothing, a little bit of light snow, but it shows snow up against the mountains. This one has it more in the highlands. We've got a couple of them down here that go a little bit gangbusters here. And there's not as many as I'd like to see right now, but it's still pretty far out. But a fair amount of them do have snow in the area. That's 1 through 25, 25 through 50. You see some of them even have some snow in the eastern Virginia, and there's a good one there for Roanoke Valley. And again, it'd be nice if you could just pick these out like shopping in a store, but you get the idea. There's some that have nothing, and then others, they really coat the area with some snow. Usually when you get a low pressure system that forms, you end up moving that up the coast. If the air is cold enough, it finds a way to snow. And so there you see some of the moisture here. This is off the Canadian model. This is looking at Saturday night. Notice it's also coming in with some snow. This is not going out to sea. It comes up the coast. So again, that's I don't want to kind of bore you with all these other details here, but I think we've got a fairly good shot at seeing accumulating snow on Saturday. This will be a Saturday system. I'm not completely 100% certain on it, but I'm looking at enough data to where when I draw my 7-day in a few more minutes, I'll put the snow icon up for coming up on Saturday. I'm that convinced that the chance is high enough to do that. And then the following weekend, there's another hint at maybe something coming down the line. I was looking at the GFS a second ago. Let me just show you that, the latest run that we've got here. And again, this is an 18Z run, so I don't like using these when I don't have to, but you've got the storm coming up, and it has it as a rain-snow mix. And it could be a rain-snow mix here Saturday, but I don't think the moisture misses us. This is that little dip right there is the northern stream system. This is the southern stream system. This is the part I was talking about where the models are going to either speed this up or slow it down, or speed it up so much that it merges with this and cuts off. If it cuts off too, that could throw a wrench in the whole problem. And what you may see is it ends up cutting off. It merges the two systems in one run, and then the next run it has it passing bombing out, and then the next run it's picked up on the next shortwave. So this is going to go all over the place this week. So you're going to see a lot of different forecasts, but in December 2018, I stuck with my guns because if you look at the overall pattern, it usually works out if you pay careful attention. And I'm not going to be biased. I'm not going to just cherry pick these models and go with that. But I know what causes it to snow here, and this looks decent. We've got a shot. Best chance we've had all winter. But that moves in and really wallops the northeast. And then if you fast forward here through February 4th, 5th, we get a dramatic warm up here, but then another front moves in. And this is February the 6th going into the 7th. You've got another complex storm system over the area with more wintry weather. That would be the following weekend. And I've looked at some data on some of the climate models that go out. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. This is February the 10th. So 3 weekends in a row where you have a chance at seeing, and maybe 4 weekends in a row. There's some more coming up maybe for Valentine's Day. So this pattern to me looks good for Virginia snow. If I was in the Northeast, I'd probably be a little bit nervous because you need it. I don't know, you probably want your oscillations to be a little bit better there, but Virginia snows can be quirky, and we can see stuff go all over the place if you've got, and I mean by snow, you can see snow falling all over Virginia if you got the ingredients where you want them. So I wouldn't go get the milk and bread just yet or anything like that, but I would keep it kind of in the back of your mind and say, you know what, if Jamie still is watching this on Wednesday and Thursday, then there's a pretty good chance that, we're going to see something going on. And I encourage you to watch other forecasters and see what they're saying. But do keep an eye out, do your homework, see if they don't say, and I'm not mocking them or anything, but there's going to be a lot of debate. Here's the map that's going to be shown. It'll be a map of the southeast. There'll be a low pressure system right here on the Gulf, and there'll be an arrow going up the coast, and there'll be an arrow going out to sea, and there'll be an arrow in the middle, and it's going to say scenario 1, 2, and 3. And it'll probably be a big question mark there. And it's one of my pet peeves. Where's it going to go? We don't know. Well, you're a weather forecaster. Come on. So I'm putting some meteorology into this. I'm going to tell you real quick why I think these things go up the coast. The oceans carry what's called latent heat. Models don't see that as well as they do other things. So when you get storms that pop up over the Gulf and storms, some rain and a lift over the Gulf, you release heat, which strengthens what we call the southeast ridge that tends to block anything from going out to sea. That's one thing. The second thing is when you get low pressure swirling here, it hits the coastline, and the wind is pretty fast over the ocean because of friction. There's no friction there, very little, compared to what you get on land. So that's called speed convergence. That convergence causes lift. That creates a coastal trough that tends to siphon the moisture up the coast. That's another thing that you have to watch. Plus the fact that when you've got, and this may not be that much of a factor this time, but when you've got cold air over meeting relatively warm ocean water, you get an Arctic air mass, you you inherently have a temperature contrast that develops along the coast. That's the third thing that we may have to watch here. So again, watching that very carefully. But you can tell there's something going on. I mean, there's your southern jet stream, and each little swirl is some energy that we're going to be watching. Watch out for a few flurries and sprinkles tomorrow. I have much more on my Patreon blog. We'll time it all out. I'll try to give you as much information as I can. And on Patreon, it's $1 a month. You cancel anytime. It's very secure. It's pretty much the main way people make money in terms of if they're creative or whatever. It's video, artists use them all the time, creators use them. It's kind of like a GoFundMe. But anyway, what it does is what I'm showing you right now, like for instance, this is $180 a year that I pay out of pocket for. Some of the other modeling I was showing you is $20 to $30 a month, and I've got like 2 or 3 of those. So it adds up. And my severe weather data is like $50 a month, and those alerts that you get, it's another $30 a month. Bottom line is, what I do with Patreon, I try to put my ideas that I'm not quite certain of out for you to see, so you've got something to chew on, especially if you're a big snow fan. And we'll go even more in depth, and I don't like to make these super long, but I know it's 10:12 now, but I get really geeky, and if you want even more information, there's a place for you to do it and a way for me to help fund this so that I can continue doing it for you. So anyway, that's the latest for now. It's a Sunday night. I'll have more graphics and information coming out as the week goes on. And again, things can change. They are going to change. I can almost guarantee that. But if everything stays where it is now, I feel fairly confident on us getting some wintry weather in here. So I think a lot of people have let their guard down and assumed winter's over, and I don't think it is. I don't think the fat lady has sung just yet. I think we've got a way to go. So I think February's active, and March could be active too. We're going to see what happens. That's all for right now. Thanks for tuning in.